Have you ever noticed something strange? Berlin and the professor are brothers. Both are geniuses. Both can manipulate people. Both can plan impossible heists. Yet one of them becomes the mastermind behind the greatest robbery in history, and the other becomes his biggest liability. Why? Because despite everything they have in common, there's one difference between them that changes absolutely everything. And once you see it, you'll never look at Berlin the same way again. Let's go back to Money Heist. Think about every time the professor was under pressure. The police were closing in. The plan was falling apart. Team members were making mistakes. Everything was chaos. Yet somehow, the professor always got calmer. The more dangerous the situation became, the more focused he became. Now compare that to Berlin. Berlin is brilliant, maybe even more charismatic, maybe even more fearless. But whenever Berlin finds himself in a difficult situation, something strange happens. He stops acting like a mastermind and starts acting like Berlin. Let me explain. Most people think Berlin's biggest strength is his intelligence. It's not. Most people think Berlin's biggest weakness is arrogance. Wrong again. Berlin's biggest weakness is something much deeper. He falls in love with feelings, not people. Feelings, excitement, passion, danger, chaos. Think about it. Every time Berlin has a choice between a smart decision and an exciting decision, which one does he choose? The exciting one, almost every time. And that's exactly why he could never become the professor. Here's a detail most fans miss. The professor loves winning. Berlin loves the game. There's a huge difference. The professor wants the mission to succeed. Berlin wants the mission to be unforgettable. The professor thinks, how do I solve this problem? Berlin thinks, how do I make this interesting? And that's why these two brothers end up on completely different paths. One builds empires. The other creates beautiful disasters. Now let's talk about the Berlin series itself. A lot of fans were disappointed. They expected another Money Heist, more action, more strategy, more heists. Instead, they got romance, drama, relationships, emotion, and many people thought the writers had lost the plot. But what if they didn't? What if the entire show is actually proving a point? What if the writers are showing us exactly why Berlin could never be the professor? Because every time a perfect plan appears, Berlin gets distracted by what he feels. Not because he's stupid, because he's human. And that's the tragedy of his character. The professor sacrifices emotions for the mission. Berlin sacrifices the mission for emotions. That's the difference. One controls his feelings, the other follows them. And for a while, following them looks exciting, even romantic. But eventually, it catches up to him. It always does. And that's what makes Berlin such a fascinating character. Deep down, he knows better. He's intelligent enough to understand consequences. He can see the train coming. He knows exactly what's going to happen. Yet he walks toward it anyway. Why? Because Berlin would rather feel everything than play it safe. He would rather experience a beautiful disaster than live a boring success. And that's something the professor would never do. So who was smarter? Honestly, I don't think that's the right question. The real question is, who had more control over himself? Because intelligence means nothing without discipline. Talent means nothing without control. And that's the lesson hidden inside both shows. The professor mastered plans. Berlin mastered people. But only one of them mastered himself. And in the end, that's why one became a legend, while the other became a tragedy. Maybe the greatest enemy in Money Heist was never the police. Maybe it wasn't the government. Maybe it wasn't even the heist. Maybe the greatest enemy was always the person staring back at you in the mirror. And that's a battle Berlin never truly won.